Call of War. It has been some time, almost 2 months to be exact. The Call of War game I started with you, my subscribers, has been raging on over the last month or so, and finally, the game has ended. So, what happened? Who won? Who lost? And how did the United Kingdom and the Resonant Republic fare against the might of my nerdy subscriber base? This is Call of War. Thank you once again for Call of War for sponsoring this follow-up video and recap of the last few weeks of gameplay. If you guys want to go and check out the game, make sure you click the link in the description. So the game starts. I, myself, playing as the United Kingdom. I have allies in Sweden and South Argentina, and together we form the Resonant Republic. We also have some allies off in the east, but we'll come on to that a little bit later. Now, starting off in the United Kingdom, I've got to build up my infrastructure, but I am a little bit worried about Europe. France seems to be a bit of a wild card player, and they seem to be scouting my lands a little bit with their planes, so I think they're going to attack. Now, of course, as the United Kingdom is perhaps the strongest defensive place you can have, so building up defenses was my number one aim. I have Sweden to help me if needs be in Europe, but South Argentina at this point are too far away, so they're not going to be too much help, and they're doing their own thing. But the Resonant Republic has been formed, and is it a powerhouse? First off though, I moved my troops into Ireland. Whilst I've captured what is known as the United Kingdom, I would like Southern Ireland to add to my roster. This will help me with a bit more of my gaining resources and infrastructure, but also because they're Irish. So, let's move my troops and I head into Ireland. It's a fairly easy task. I do lose a few men as it is early on in the game, and this was the first game I played, so I wasn't 100% sure what I was doing, but we capture Ireland and we gain some resources. Argentina on their side has started pushing up fast into its neighboring territory in South America, and actually one of the fastest moving factions in the game at the beginning. And Sweden, of course, pushing into Finland, making sure that they don't stand a chance. We all have a bit more territory, but they're all AI. They're not the real issue. The real issue are the 97 other players in the game. So, as United Kingdom, quite naturally, I would have to get up a fleet. My fleet was forming quite nicely, but it was paramount that I did have the strongest navy in the game. And then, as I expected, France declares war. They're already in a coalition with Spain and Germany, so I expected that they would soon follow on. But France decides for some reason to start sending fighters to my shore. At this point, I already had made a destroyer or two, so they were dealt with easily. Next, the French started sending transport ships over to Cornwall. They were sank by my destroyers. I thought it was going pretty well, so I packed it in for the night and I went to sleep. The next morning I woke up and Germany had destroyers on my shores trying to land troops. I quickly cleared them out with some cruisers, and then France was continuing to try and cross the channels to my shores, but I managed to just about push them back. Okay, so Germany has now declared war. This is it. I call in Sweden for help and he starts getting ready to push in on Germany's east side. And it's time for my counterattack. All the meantime, Sweden pressing against Germany's borders to the northeast. This is our chance. Germany, though, now has destroyers, perhaps the stronger nation in opposed to France, who was pretty weak at this point after sending all their troops on a suicide mission. But I, myself, have cruisers. Germany's destroyers didn't stand a chance. While sending a large force to counterattack France on the northwest coast, I also sent an army to their center and their northeast coast. Here I have a three-pronged attack. They don't have the troops to defend, and after sending them all to their deaths at the beginning against my destroyers, France is breaking pretty fast. Then I break through. Once I'm through the front lines, it's over for France. It's a pretty easy rush through France and Germany with light and medium tanks. Germany is holding out for a bit longer. They start to crumble as Sweden comes in, and as I never mentioned before, I had a plan under my sleeve. You see, as soon as France and Germany declared war on me, I started talking to the Balkan Alliance, Romania, Yugoslavia, Greece, and they started pushing up France's and Germany's south. So they were slowly being crushed together like the trash compactor from Star Wars, and it was only a matter of time before Europe was ours. But remember the Balkan Alliance. You see, whilst they helped us to get France and Germany out of the picture, I could tell tensions were already raising. Especially when I was pushing into France, I could see Yugoslavia pushing in the other way, and It was a race to get to Spain first to capture as much territory as possible. For now, we agreed that we'd have half of Spain each, but I knew that wouldn't last. But for now, Northern Europe is mine. And whilst the war with France has somewhat ended, the Balkan Alliance, whilst after helping us take Europe, are still a large threat, and at this point they're actually stronger than we are. Now, we do have a non-aggression pact with them, but I don't quite know how long that's going to last. So, Sweden and I both start stacking troops. Heavy tanks, stronger infantry, battleships and aircraft, just out of sight of the Balkan Alliance's view, so they don't know what we're doing, but we know. Now we have no idea if they're doing the same or whether they're going to be caught completely off guard by this attack, but we are ready to send a tsunami over to them at even a second's notice. Then the next day, the attack begins. And it worked. They had no idea that we were going to just suddenly turn on them. Yes, it seems like a scummy move, but they were being annoying. I think that's justified for complete war. So, both sides, Sweden and the UK, crunching through the rest of Europe. The Balkan Alliance not strong enough to hold us back. We now had heavy tanks. They couldn't do anything about it. The Alps were proving to be a bit tricky to get over, but just sending some infantry and mechanized troops would absolutely fine doing the work for us. I mean, it wasn't easy, but they didn't have nearly the weaponry and resources to defend against us. Especially later, when we called in Upper Volta in Libya from Africa, then to start helping, putting pressure on their south across the Mediterranean. At this point, Madagascar had also seen what was going on and started funding us, giving us food, resources to help us create more troops to crush the enemy. The Balkan Alliance didn't stand a chance. Soon enough, beige and green was spreading across the red Europe, and the Balkan Alliance were getting ready to put up a final stand in Greece. Now, I did mention a few lines earlier that Upper Volta joined the coalition, and it helped us a lot. It pushed our points all the way to the top of the leaderboard and helped us get ready for our next ventures into the world. As you might have forgotten, but South Argentina, who was pushing into the rest of South America, wanted more. He killed all the AI around him, and it was time to go and fight Venezuela, Chile, all the rest of them, and take them down. So, that's where we started heading, me and Upper Volta, crossing the sea into South America. I let Sweden clear up the rest of the Balkan Alliance. They did have a somewhat of a last stand in Greece, but it didn't really stand a chance since Sweden very heavily focused on aircraft, so bombing them from afar was his choice. Whilst this was all going on, I heard threats from North America, and I wasn't caught off guard by this. I predicted it, so I already had a few submarines around my shores, but I strengthened that net for my western borders in the sea with more destroyers and cruisers to make sure that no one could get into Blighty, even if they tried. And then, the invasion of South America begins. Upper Volta lands on the shores, South Argentina then going at it against the rest of the continent. Belgian Congo joins in and comes into our coalition, another massive powerhouse from Africa, and all the whilst Madagascar still giving us resources and helping us. They seem to be more of a passive nation, just sitting on their island, not really wanting more land, but just gaining resources and giving them to the factions that they think will do the best in the world. So now South America was being destroyed, slowly crushing through it with South Argentina and Upper Volta. We got through all of it, and then there was Venezuela. For some reason, we couldn't quite get into Venezuela. They were standing strong and continued to sink all our ships. But we kept pushing. More and more troops being sent, and there were casualties. So many casualties. I even started to bring down my larger forces from the north and sit them off the coast of Venezuela, ready for the right time. Unfortunately, as we'll get onto later, I left it a bit too late. No matter how many troops Volta and South Argentina put into the war, though, Venezuela just spat them back out. So I sent landing parties into Mexico in the attempt to push down round behind Venezuela, but that never really seemed to come into fruition. As Japan, out of nowhere, attacked South Argentina's borders, I managed to get some ships round and sink a large portion of their navy and a massive section of their army. Now, this wasn't caught on camera, but they had a stack of 71 troops, which at this point in the game was unseen, and I took them out with my submarines, which was a massive blow to the Japanese army, but at this point, our coalition was so close to winning. Less than 1,000 points away, and this meant the rest of the world was starting to catch on. North America, Asia, Siberia, the Middle East, everyone knew that it was nearly our victory, which meant that they all had a just reason to join up against us. First of all, it was South America that fell. Japan came to Venezuela's aid, and together they pushed back South Argentina and Upper Volta. Then, of course, Siberia moved in from the east, moving into Europe, taking Sweden's forces by surprise and crushing them with just sheer mass. Even Sweden's air force couldn't stop them at this point. Congo, who were in our coalition, started to see us be taken out and decided, and that ain't for him. He left the coalition and started attacking Upper Volta, betraying us and stabbing us in the back. If I'm going to be honest, it was probably a good decision on his part though. There wasn't much left for our coalition. And soon, it was just me. Me on my lonely island in the middle of a world that wanted me dead. All my allies had been destroyed, and soon enough, it was my time. Slowly but surely, I could see armies converging on the United Kingdom. My net lasted for a while, with my submarines sinking anything that really came from America, but it wasn't enough to stop Siberia from pushing in and taking the rest of the United Kingdom and my beautiful home, owned by Russians. I mean, we lasted a long time. We almost and was so close to winning the game, but it was just too much when the whole world declared war on our coalition. Maybe we could have done something different. Maybe get more allies, or maybe we could have just been a bit more prepared for that attack, because let's be honest, anyone could have seen that coming, and we did, but we were just a bit too hubris to expect it could do anything at that point since we were so powerful. But alas, we did well. The Resonant Coalition stood, and whilst we didn't win, I think we really had an impact on the game, and for a long time it looked like we were going to be the victors, and it made for an incredible and intense battle and war. So that is Call of War. That was our game going over the last month or so, and it is persistent, so everything stays as you log on and log off to make some more moves, create some more alliances or enemies. If you guys once again want to check it out, make sure you click the link in the description. It was a lot of fun, and who knows, maybe I'll do another game in the future. But until then, I will see you in the next one.